USCIS closed the immigration court in mid-March due to coronavirus pandemic. As certain states, including New York, have started to open up again, many are wondering what the status of the courts are now. Of course, this is so important because it directly affects when cases will start moving through the system again. With me to break it all down is Spar Bernstein immigration attorney and partner, Shannon LaGuerre Maingrette.
How are you?
Great, let's jump right into it. Are New York State's immigration courts open?
So I've been in court for Fishkill and Ulster County. Those are detained dockets. So that's a little bit further upstate. And so the way, even during the lockdown, the judges were calling us. So the detained dockets are open, continue to be open now. Varick was also open too, and they were doing mostly telephonic, but you can also appear in person. So the detained docket, people who are detained, immigrants who are detained in basically an immigration jail, they have had their court hearings going forward. That's Varick in New York. That's also Ulster County and Fishkill. As of now, the non-detained docket, which is people who are not in jail and who are basically outliving their life, but they are basically in immigration court. The New York City courts are closed. They've been closed since March, and they remain closed, indicating that September looks like they may be opening. Since there's been the reopening of New York City, every week they're like, okay, we're going to open this time, we're going to open this time, and now it's September. Let's see if they do reopen.
What about New Jersey and Connecticut?
So New Jersey has reopened, but they are doing telephonic masters. So like the first initial appearances, and then also the individual hearings, you are requested to do telephonic appearances for that too. So they will call you, the judges, and basically at that point, they will conduct the hearings at that time. Connecticut is open.
Some courts are only open for filings and detained hearings. What does this mean?
So like we talked about earlier in New York with Varick and Fishkill and Ulster County, they're only doing detained dockets. That's all they're doing. So some places around the country, they are only conducting detained docket hearings because again, someone's life and liberty is at stake. They are now detained and they want to get out, right? Whether they are, released with some form of relief, whether they are deported, but people don't want to sit in jail, right? So at this point, it's really important that you have their hearings and that they be conducted in some manner. So like I said before, the judges would call me while I was on lockdown at home. They would call me on my landline at home to basically conduct the hearing. So that's for the detained docket that continues. And then also for filings, you still need to file things because we don't know when court's going to open, right? So a lot of times I had court coming up for the 26th and I had already filed something because at that point I didn't know if it was going to open or not. So I still put in all my documentation. So a lot of courts are like, okay, make sure you put in your filings. A lot of times if you miss a deadline, it's detrimental to your client. So you still want to be able to prepare your case and submit it even though the court may continue to be closed.
And where can people go to see what the status of the courts are in their states?
So basically you can just go to www.justice.gov and then after it's EOIR, which is E for executive, O for office, I for immigration, and R for review. And once you actually bring that page up, you're looking for the operational status of the immigration courts. And usually it's like the first thing that pops up when you actually put it up. And then at that point, you will look for your particular court to see what the status is.
And what is your advice to people as they navigate their immigration cases during COVID-19 pandemic?
A lot of clients are calling me very upset because a lot of them are like, well, I thought this was going to be done this year. Like I waited 3 years because a lot of times people don't realize that you're waiting 3 years before you actually have your actual hearing. So you get a final decision. And a lot of people want this over with. They want a decision. That point, basically, they've waited all this time, 2 to 3 years, and here we are in this situation, and now it's being postponed, and we have no idea when they'll have another hearing. So it certainly can be devastating a lot of times for many clients who have really great cases. There are other cases, too, where there are deadlines. People are aging out. Children are aging out, and that also becomes an issue. How do you deal with this? These are the issues that are being dealt with on a daily basis, and I tell people, listen, now it's just crazy, right? You have people who are dying. They're estimating that there's going to be 300,000 people in the US that will die. And we need to be careful. You need to speak to your attorney. You need to ask them, what is the strategy? How do we move forward? Will I still be able to either keep my green card, get a green card? These are things that you need to sit down with your attorney and talk about. You also have to be patient because this is not normal, right? Because this is a whole pandemic that's affected the entire United States. And the judges' unions, the government attorneys' unions have been fighting really hard to protect their members. Because remember, when you go into court, it's a packed courtroom. I mean, everybody's on top of each other. You need to speak. It's actually a tape recorder. It's recording what the judge, what the government attorney, and what the respondent's attorney is saying. So imagine you have a mask on. It's going to be very difficult to hear. It's going to be muffled. That could be problematic moving forward. They are trying to find a way to keep everyone protected. We need to be understanding of that too, but also understanding, how do we move forward from this? Will I be protected? Make sure you keep in contact with your attorney, because if somehow you're depending on a qualifying relative where that person's going to age out, then you need to speak to the attorney. What can we do? Because I need to make sure that I'm able to get this green card or this level of relief. Very important to speak to your attorney during this time.
Everything else we're facing during this pandemic, it's just adjusting to these new norms, even with our immigration processing. Shannon, thank you so much for all this great information. To get in touch with Shannon or any of our other talented attorneys here at Spar Bernstein, call 1-800-529-5465. That's 1-800-529-5465.